Hi there. Welcome back, everybody, to TOEFL Speaking Class. Hope you've all had a great week so far. And yes, we're back again. And today we're going to be looking at TOEFL Speaking Task 2, which is an independent speaking task. And next week, we're going to focus on tasks 3 and 5, which are the two speaking tasks which require you to listen to conversations. So you need to show that you have the ability to understand conversational context. And then the following week, we're going to look at tasks 4 and 6, which require you to listen to lectures. So they require more academic listening skills. And then the following week after that, we're going to combine all of these skills again into a full speaking test, practice test. So today I'm going to go through 4 sample task 2 questions with you. I'm going to give you a sample of the first one of my own response, just as an example to really understand the task. And then I'm going to show you or give you 3 questions, and then I'm going to give you time to prepare your answer to those questions and then speak your answers, and then you'll be able to listen to a real student sample response to compare that to your own. Okay, now before we get started, I'm just going to play a short audio clip to make sure that you can all hear. So here goes.
I think it's better to have shorter work weeks for both employees.
Everyone could hear that? Okay, I can't do anything about the volume. My volume is on full. So just make sure that your speaker is on high, or the highest that it can go. Or pop your headphones in. Sometimes it's the audio is louder through your headphones than it is playing through your computer. Okay, great. Let's get started. Okay, so as I said, we're going to be covering TOEFL Speaking Task 2, practice today. We're going to have lots of chances to practice and listen to samples. So here are 4 sample questions that you could see on test day. So much of today's education is becoming digitized. What do you prefer, online or classroom learning, and why? Second one says, in some countries, the working week is shorter, i.e. 4 days, but the working days are longer. Do you think it's better to have shorter work weeks and longer working days, and why? Number 3, some schools provide children with health education classes. Other schools send health information to parents so that parents can teach their own children about health issues. Which approach do you think is better, and why? And finally, school children should school children be required to study art throughout their schooling? Explain your answer. So you might see a similarity between all of these questions. For example, the first part, much of today's education is becoming digitized. The first part gives you a general statement. This kind of gives you an overview or a general idea of what you're talking about. It introduces the topic. So here we know we're talking about digital education. The next part is the actual question. What do you prefer, online or classroom learning? So as you can see, it's asking you to give an opinion, to choose one or the other. And then finally, why? So it's asking you to explain why you made that choice. So you need to give an opinion on a social issue, could have something to do with education, discipline, eating habits, health. And then you need to support your opinion with an explanation and examples. So as you can see in the examples that I showed you, most of them actually give you 2 options. Some people think this, others think this. What do you think and why? So in those cases, you'd have to choose one opinion. Other examples just ask you a question. So the school children example, the question was, should school children be forced to take art throughout their schooling? What do you think and why? Or do you agree or disagree? So either way that the question is stated, you're still going to have to take an opinion and support it. Okay, so you will see the prompt displayed on your screen, and you're also going to hear it read out to you. Then you're going to be given 15 seconds to prepare and then 45 seconds to speak. So as soon as the 15 seconds preparation time is up, the speaking timer begins. So when planning your response for this kind of question, you might want to think about it in 3 steps. Firstly, state your opinion. Do you agree or disagree? Or which view do you agree with? Then you need to explain why you agree or disagree. And then support your opinion with examples. So give specific reasons. So let's take a look at the first example. Much of today's education is becoming digitized. What do you prefer, online or classroom learning, and why? So I'm just going to give you my response to that as an example. Nowadays, a lot of education is going online. Although it's very convenient and efficient, I actually prefer traditional learning in the classroom. This is probably because all of my education was in a classroom environment. And I feel like that kind of environment gives you more interaction, and it improves your ability to understand things from different perspectives. It also helps to socialize people. When we learn with others, we also learn how to work with and interact with others. In an online environment, we're alone and don't really get the same interaction as we do in real life. Okay, so you can see that I finished about 2 or 3 seconds before the time ran out, and that's okay, as long as you actually are able to give a full and complete answer and finish it before the 45 seconds is up. So if you've got a few seconds at the end, don't feel like you have to fill that in. Otherwise, you might end up rambling or going off topic or repeating yourself. Okay, are we ready for the first practice? So get your pens and papers ready to take notes. Here's your question. In some countries, the working week is shorter, that is 4 days, but the working hours are longer. Do you think it's better to have shorter work weeks and longer work days, and why? So 15 seconds starts now. Okay, your time is up. You now have 45 seconds to speak your response, starting now. Time is up. Okay, let's listen to a sample student response to that question.
I think it's better to have shorter work weeks for both employees and companies, because employees will have the adrenaline to finish all their tasks and become productive on the 4-day work, rather than have them extending for a 5-day work week. And aside from that, the companies will also be benefiting a lot from it because they will have a reduced cost in the operational side, especially on the like for example in the utilities, as well as in the resources that will be used during the work week. And aside from that, I believe that people will be more productive if they are more relaxed and were able to refresh themselves from the stress of the work week.
Okay, what did you think? That may have been a tougher question purely because it's just long, and sometimes you see a long question and you panic. So don't worry if you see a long question. It's really just asking you one thing. So just read it and think about, okay, what is it asking me? What is it asking me to do or to think about? So in this case, even though it was long, the question was really, do you think people should work shorter weeks and longer hours, and why? Now, if it's something that you've never really thought about before, sometimes we get questions, that ask us to think about something we've never thought of before, and that's okay. I mean, you've got that 15 seconds. It's not a lot of time, but just remember, there's no right or wrong answer. So there's nothing that you can say that would be considered. You're not judged on your opinion. You're judged on your ability to speak and support your opinion. So even if you believe in what you're saying or not, don't focus too much on that, right? Just focus more on take a side, explain why, and give an example. So as you could hear in the sample response, the person gave two explanations. Firstly, they agree that the working week should be shorter for the sake of the individual, for the employee, and also for the sake of the employer. So that was an interesting approach to take to that question. Okay, let's look at practice number 2. Some schools provide children with health education classes. Other schools send information home to parents so that parents can teach their children about health issues. Which approach do you think is better and why? So your 15 seconds prep time starts now. And your time is up. You have 45 seconds to speak your response. Okay, how did you go with that one? Let's listen to a sample student response.
I believe that it would be more advantageous for schools to teach children about health and what are the aspects revolving around health education. This is easier because children tend to spend a lot of time in school on a daily basis on weekdays, and it is also possible that the parents could be busy, meaning that they wouldn't be able to devote enough time to go ahead and or teach their kids to prepare or teach them to go ahead and be educated about health issues. What could also work would be, say, maybe a combination of these two aspects where a majority of training is provided to children in schools with a structured curriculum, and parents could chip in when required.
Okay, finally, practice 3. Should school children be required to study art throughout their schooling? Explain your answer. You have 15 seconds to prepare. Okay, you have 45 seconds to speak your response. Time starts now. And time is up. All right, let's listen to the last sample.
School children should not be required to study art or any other subject mandatorily throughout their schooling because interest should be given more importance. Making a subject mandatory should not be the way to go and will curb their natural flair at something that comes naturally to them. When I was in the 7th grade, I was forced to study physics, which wasn't my favorite subject. And eventually I ended up dropping out of engineering because I didn't like physics, and forcing me to do it wasn't the way to go about it. And I think art would do the same to someone if, say, a student was more interested in the sciences or some other subject.
Okay, so what did you think of the samples? I'm just going to open up to questions now. So if you have any comments about the samples or questions about the samples or about the questions themselves, now's the time to ask. So you'd notice that these samples weren't perfect, and your responses don't have to be. You know, they're not looking for perfection. What they're looking for is the pace of your speech. So are you stopping and starting a lot? There's only 45 seconds, so you don't want to leave a lot of pauses. So you don't want to be stopping to think for, you know, a second or 2 seconds and have too much empty time or empty space in your response. Also, how's your pronunciation? Are you speaking clearly? Are you speaking too quickly? So this is sort of pace and fluency. They're also looking for the structure of your response. So are you stating your opinion? Are you giving a reason why you think that? And are you also providing examples? So that structure might really help you to sort of figure out how you're going to plan your 45 seconds. Okay, so we are going to look at, somebody's asked a template for question 5. I'm assuming you mean task 5, the conversation. So we're going to cover that next week when we look at tasks 3 and 5 next week. So we're going to look at some samples and templates for responses for that as well. Okay, Zaki has asked, shall we introduce the topic or should we just need to give the opinion? Yeah, good question. So you should introduce the topic so the listener knows what you're talking about. So you can do that. For example, in my question, which was education is becoming more and more digitized, which do you prefer, online or classroom education? In my response, I said, nowadays a lot of education is going online. So I actually paraphrased the first part of the question and then I gave my opinion. Although it's very convenient and efficient, I actually prefer traditional classroom learning. So I introduced the topic, gave my opinion, and then went on to give my explanation. Okay, in terms of vocabulary for tasks 1 and 2, these are based on your personal experience. Okay, so you can use you can use first person. Also, it's really effective to help you in structuring your talk to use things like the first reason and the second reason, or firstly, also, next. These are good markers. Also, not just for you and in your mind to sort of keep the structure, but also for the listener. It helps them to sort of connect the ideas as they're hearing you. With task 2, this particular one, because you're giving an opinion, Things like I believe, I think, in my opinion. So these phrases are helpful. I believe this because. So because, or I believe this because you're giving a reason. So it's introducing a reason. With task 1, you're giving descriptive language. You're sort of describing an event or a person or a place. So more descriptive language. But we can look at that next time we look at task 1. Okay, common topic for prep better. Common topic for better prep. Okay, so anything to do with giving an opinion, anything that there could be two sides to. So look at things to do with education, look at things to do with society, look at things to do with, parenting, things like that, things that, even diet, food. These are sort of common topics that you might come across. What I would suggest is you take a look at the topics that we include in the course. They're pretty broad. They cover quite a lot of sort of disciplines and fields. I would suggest read as much as you can and listen to as much as you can. You can go on to TED.com, for example, listen to a broad range of topics, and then try to take an opinion about them. So in this task, what's sort of challenging is you've got 30 seconds to sort of think, oh, what do I think? And sometimes about things that you've never thought about before. So I tried to read up about lots of different topics, controversial topics, and think about what do you think of these topics. And practice speaking. It doesn't have to be a formal sort of TOEFL practice exercise, but you can practice speaking with a friend. I heard this lecture the other day, or I read this article the other day about genetic engineering. It was really interesting. Some people think this, others think this. What do you think about the topic? So sort of expanding your mind to sort of think in different ways. That's going to help you a lot with this task. How many explanations and examples are we supposed to give? I would cut it at 2. Any more than 2 and you're going to start running out of time. And also, you won't have enough time to really expand on those examples. So you want to give an example and sort of expand on it. So I would say 2 examples, each one sort of 2 sentences, 2 to 3 sentences. Yeah, a template. So somebody's asked, it's a good idea to have a template when responding. A template is going to help you. So maybe when you've got your 15 seconds to sort of take your notes, maybe keep that in mind. So opinion, reason, example. What's my opinion? Agree or disagree? And you might want to do something like put a tick or a cross. A tick if you agree or a cross if you don't agree. You're not going to have enough time to write out full sentences. That's kind of what I did when I did the TOEFL. In my speaking, I wrote down my structure, and my structure really helped to guide me so that I didn't go off topic, or that I didn't spend too much time talking about one thing and then run out of time for another. Linking phrases for the question. Okay, good. So things like, so if you want to introduce the topic, you go ahead and introduce the topic. Then the second sentence will be something like, in my opinion, I believe, I think, or I feel. So these are good sort of introductions into stating your opinion. Firstly, or the first reason why I think this is because, explain it and give you an example. The second reason I think this is because. So keeping them simple, they don't have to be too complicated, but they give a nice, clear sort of structure and progression to your talk. And if you have enough time at the end, I mean, you don't have to add a conclusion, but if you've kind of, have a few seconds to spare, you might want to add a final thought. So finally, given these reasons, I believe that classroom education is better than online learning. And just sort of summarize your opinion by going full circle. You don't have to include a summary. So only if you have extra time. How many points did I score? Good question. I got 29 out of 30 for the speaking. And I had not prepared. I didn't know what the TOEFL was. I had no preparation whatsoever before I went in to do the test. And it was kind of an experiment. And it was a very interesting experiment. So yeah, 29 for speaking. Now, the thing is with the speaking is that it's not just how well you speak, it's how well do you listen. Because obviously in tasks 3, 4, 5, and 6, there's, listening. There's also reading. So how well do you read? How well can you take the information from those sources and, express it in your own words? So summarizing skills as well. So they're looking for lots of skills in the speaking. Thanks, guys. Yeah, it was a stressful experience because I had no idea what to expect. And I went into the test center and there were only 2 other people in the test center. So it was very, very small. And walked in and they didn't let me take anything into the room. They made me stand like I was at the airport with my arms out, and they patted me down to make sure I wasn't bringing anything, illegal into the test room. So I even had some tissues in my pocket and they made me remove my tissues. So they're pretty strict. And then in the cubicle, you're given headphones so that when you're in the listening and the speaking, you've got your headphones on. And when you're actually speaking your response, there are other people in the room next to you also speaking their response. Now, your headphones don't exactly drown out their voice, so you can still hear their voices while you're trying to speak, and that can be distracting. So another thing or piece of advice that I would give you to prepare for test day is practice speaking your responses with the radio on or with the TV on or something, else on in the background. It'll really help you to build up your concentration. Otherwise it could be distracting. In terms of accents, with the TOEFL, you're going to be hearing American accents. So when you're practicing your listening for this test, you might want to focus on listening to American accents. So usually TED has American speakers, although lots of them are international. In terms of your own accent, there's nothing really much you can do about that unless you can fake a really good American accent. But I wouldn't worry too much about accent. Okay, I'd worry more about pronunciation, taking your time to really clearly speak your words. They're not really biased about accents. And the good thing about the TOEFL is that it's real examiners listening to your speaking. It's not a computer. So even though you're speaking into a computer, a real person is actually marking your speaking. And there are 6 tasks and there are different markers for each task. So it's not one assessor looking at all 6 tasks. So in a way that's actually really good for you because, if you've got somebody, let's just say you have a heavy Spanish accent and there's somebody who, has never heard that accent before, there won't be bias or there won't be any bias in your response because there's lots of different examiners listening, not just the one. So I think it's a fairer system of marking. Okay, I think that is all the questions. Yes, as I said, next week we're going to be looking at task 3 and 5, which are listening to conversations and summarizing them. So I'll see you same time, same place. Ciao.